Yes, Coleman Domingo! Yes! Let's go, let's go. No, DiCaprio, he's out. He missed. He missed, guys. He missed. No surprise, but very delightful lineup.
Yeah.
Well, here we are again, folks. The video I wait to do every single year, and always so much discuss when the Oscar nominations are released. And look, overall, I'd say that this doesn't have too many things that I can complain about, but there are a few huge snubs and surprise nominations that I wasn't happy about, and I will get into shortly. So we might as well get right into it. As I said before in other videos, I'm not going to go over the live action shorts, the animated shorts, documentary shorts. I'm not really too familiar with a lot of those films, except it's interesting to see Wes Anderson get nominated for The Wonderful Story of Henry Sugar. Could this be Wes Anderson's Oscar to lose? I think that's kind of crazy that they'll be giving it to him for this short, but, it could be a deserving win. I have to see the other shorts, but let's get right into visual effects, and the nominees in that category are The Creator, Godzilla -1, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, and Napoleon. Wow, I am so happy about this category, guys. Godzilla made it in! Yes! The best movie of the year, the best movie of the decade, finally gets a nomination at the Oscars. I'm really happy for Takashi Yamazaki finally getting an Oscar nomination for such an incredible feat in visual effects and in cinema, period. And also, Mission Impossible, for the first time, was nominated for an Oscar. I cannot believe that this series had not been nominated in the past. Of course, Lauren Balfe missed the shortlist for score, which I think is ridiculous. But at the same time, the fact that this film kind of bombed at the box office, and the Academy is still giving it the love that it absolutely deserves. Really, really happy about that. And of course, Guardians was going to get in. That was fairly obvious. Napoleon also very, very well deserved. But I think if I had to choose, I have to go with The Creator here. I mean, this is some of the most groundbreaking visual effects work I've ever seen in any film, especially considering it was done on an $80 million budget. The world that Gareth Edwards creates it feels so lived in and so fresh from a visual standpoint. I think that this is a film that is going to change industry standards when it comes to visual effects work and how much you really need to bloat your budget up to be able to get effective work done. I really think this is a groundbreaking achievement, and I really hope it goes all the way to win, and I think it just might. Up next, Best Film Editing, we have Anatomy of a Fall, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. I think Anatomy's showing in this category, amongst others that we will get into, really shows it's a top 5 movie in the Oscar race, and I was really delighted to see it. I think it is a deserved nomination for sure. It's very, very calculated. I love the way they play with sound and ADR and how they cut that together. It really is impressive from an editing standpoint, as well as many other categories, and really happy to see that. Glad to see Barbie not get in here, because a lot of people were thinking, the overwhelming support for Barbie was really going to make an impact, but I think it showed up in other categories for that reason, and we'll obviously talk about that a little bit down the line, but I really do think that this was this is a very solid lineup. I think Zone of Interest should have made it in. I think it's one of the best edited films of the year. But I think without a doubt this is going to Oppenheimer, one of the best edited film, might I correct myself there, of the entirety of 2023. And there's no way that Jennifer Lane doesn't walk away with this Oscar. And for Best Costume Design, we have Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. This category comes as no surprise. Like always, I was expecting these 5 to be nominated, And this is a category I truly believe that Barbie deserves to win in. This is one that I would pick as well. There's just so many amazing, immaculate costumes that are just shown for even like a few seconds and just to be thrown off the screen immediately after. I think that the work here that was done for these is just absolutely phenomenal, incredibly vibrant, incredibly beautiful, incredibly creative. I think it comes as no surprise that this should win. Though Poor Things costumes, I think, are incredibly steampunk and Victorian in a really beautiful way. Killers of the Flower Moon really nails the period detail. Oppenheimer is just, they're in the 40s. So, it's worthy of a nomination, you could say, but I don't think it deserves a win. But yeah, I really think overall this is quite a good category. Would have loved to see the Zone of Interest get in. I think the way they capture like the Nazi uniforms and just the robe that they wore at that time, I think is incredibly accurate and incredibly impressive from a technical standpoint. But yeah, I really think that this is Barbie's award to lose. And for Best Cinematography, we have El Conde, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Okay, here we get into one of the most egregious snubs of the entire ceremony. No Zone of Interest, no Lucas Zal. You gotta be out of your damn minds. That was easily the best shot movie of the entire year. Every frame of that film is perfect. And you're telling me that doesn't get in? Come on. I mean, I haven't seen El Conde, but no one really cares about the movie. Sorry, Pablo Larraín. I'm sure it looks beautiful. I'm probably going to watch it before the Oscars. But really, I wouldn't have even minded seeing Poor Things get bumped out, as amazing as that cinematography is. I just don't understand how you can't nominate Zone of Interest. And plus, Lucas Zal got nominated for Cold War, and that wasn't even a Best Picture contender, which really confuses me when it comes to Zone of Interest, because obviously we'll get into the overwhelming support it got in the major categories, but the fact that it's missing here is absolutely blasphemous. I don't know what the cinematography branch was thinking for not nominating him for this film, but whatever, that's just how the chips fall. Can't always get what you want, right? But I would have liked to see that at the very least. Regardless, I think Hoyte van Hoytema is finally winning his Oscar for Oppenheimer, and it's very well deserved, especially with all the the IMAX mags they used. All this stuff, it's a very innovative film, the way they created the film to actually shoot this particular movie. And I think just from a technical standpoint, it is more than deserving of a win. And I completely understand after watching Oppenheimer again, I loved it even more. And this definitely is an award that is going to come along with the whole package of 13 Oscar nominations for Oppenheimer, which is just no surprise, but kind of amazing at the same time. So yeah, I'm going to predict Oppenheimer for this one. And the nominees for Best Production Design are Barbie, Killers of the Flower Moon, Napoleon, Oppenheimer, and Poor Things. Yet again, no surprise to anyone that these were the ones to pick. I am a little bit surprised at Napoleon, but yet again, all the nominations I think it earned were quite deserved from a technical standpoint. I would have loved to have seen Zone of Interest in here. Yet again, I mean, this movie deserved probably at least 7 nominations, if you ask me. But I don't think production design was an absolute necessity. But yet again, it would have been nice to come along with the package. Here you really have 2 frontrunners, though, Barbie and Poor Things. I personally would pick Poor Things in this category because I think the sets they created were so vast and so huge. I mean, I know Emma Stone said she was walking around Lisbon, that whole set for like 40 minutes, just discovering every single nook and cranny of what was on there. And I think that is more than deserving of a win. But Barbie, I will not be upset to see win, and I quite frankly think it will. Just the way they created these, dream doll houses, I think is absolutely phenomenal and beyond impressive. The world had a pink paint shortage because of it, and I think all that dedication and effort shows. I mean, everyone wanted to show up on the set and have a party on their breaks, and especially the Fast 9 people, you know. So it really was a big celebration being inside this world, and the way they created Barbie Land, I think, is absolutely amazing. One of the greatest feats in production design, and you could say the same thing about Poor Things. If it was any other year, I think either one of these would easily win, but unfortunately they had the privilege of going up. Well, I don't know if it's privilege is the right word, but they had the misfortune of going up against each other in just such an amazing year. But I will predict Barbie for this one, even though my heart goes with Poor Things, and either one would be deserved. And for Best Makeup and Hairstyling, we have Golda, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Poor Things, and Society of the Snow. Now, this is a really interesting year for makeup, because in any other year you would think that the winner of this category would also correlate to a lead acting win. And I don't think that's going to be the case, but I still think that Maestro is going to win the Oscar for Best Makeup. This is literally the best aging makeup I have ever seen in my life. Literally every single crease and wrinkle on Bradley Cooper's face as the old Leonard Bernstein feels so real and so believable, and I think that's the great thing about it too. And also his performance, he ages with the character. I think the makeup, though, obviously without it, that transformation wouldn't be as incredible as it is. And you could say the same thing about Carey Mulligan playing Felicia in this. I really think that this is the runaway winner. Nothing even comes close. But I was glad to see Golda get nominated. Not a great film, not even one I reviewed on this channel, but Helen Mirren completely disappears in that film, and I think is more than deserved. As well as Society of the Snow, which was quite an obvious one considering the track record of All Quiet getting nominated last year, because they have very similar sensibilities in regards to how the makeup is used to, you know, express the damage that's going on, and all the gore and the dirt and everything about it. It makes it feel very raw and quite lived in, but yet again, I mean, nothing even comes close to Maestro in this race, and I think this will be the one Oscar that Maestro actually wins. And for Best Sound, we have The Creator, Maestro, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, Oppenheimer, and The Zone of Interest. I am beyond ecstatic that Mission Impossible got another nomination. This is the first time the series has ever been nominated and get one, let alone two nominations. I think this is like some of the best sound of the entire year. More than deserving of this nomination. I said this as soon as I got out of the theater. I'm like, this better get a sound nomination, and it absolutely did. It's incredible. Look, if it were up to me, I would choose The Creator, personally. But then again, watching Oppenheimer once again at home, I had no issues with the audio, and I think that is more than deserving of a win. The way the sound is used to heighten the tension, especially the Trinity test. I mean, come on. That's one of the absolute best scenes of the entire year. One of the best scenes of Nolan's career. And even just the way his sound is used in that rally sequence in the auditorium, which I still think is Nolan's best sequence. Okay, I probably do think this movie should win after discussing it. But yet again, this category is just so great. I understand why Maestro was nominated. Not my favorite or anything. But even so, I think that this is certainly a category where Oppenheimer has a runaway win once again, and it is going to be yet again another Oscar to tally up its award-winning run by the end of the Oscars. But I am also really happy to see Zone of Interest get the nomination, especially considering it didn't get score, and we'll get into that, because maybe it was kind of coupled as one, but the sound design in Zone of Interest is so eerily haunting and unbelievable. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, yeah, this has to be nominated for sound. I'm actually surprised Ferrari didn't get in, of all movies. Ferrari got blanked this year, but I think Zone of Interest is more than deserving of a nomination, and I'm really glad to see that The Creator and Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1 got in as well. And the nominees for Best Original Song are The Fire Inside from Flamin' Hot, music and lyrics by Diane Warren. Oh, there she is again. I'm Just Ken from Barbie, of course, music and lyrics by Mark Ronson and Andrew Wyatt. It Never Went Away from American Symphony, music and lyrics by John Baptiste and Dan Wilson. A Song from My People from Killers of the Flower Moon, music and lyrics by George Scott. I can't pronounce that word and I won't even attempt to. And What Was I Made For from Barbie, music and lyrics by Billie Eilish and Phineas O'Connell. Look, I really think that this is yet again Billy and Phineas's win. I know everyone wants I'm Just Ken to win. It's a fun song. I don't think it's much more than that. But I think that this is easily, once again, the best song in any movie. This is not me being biased, of course. I just legitimately think between this and No Time to Die, both of those films were deserving to win the Oscar for Best Original Song. You know this is going to be Barbie's category to lose. I really don't think anything else even comes close. I was not surprised to see John Baptiste get a nomination because everyone loves him. And the only nomination for American Symphony didn't even get into documentary, which was a bit of a surprise. But even so, I think that I was more surprised Lenny Kravitz didn't get in for Road to Freedom from Rustin. I'm not saying it entirely is the greatest song you'll ever hear. But yet again, he was getting all the precursors, and yet again, this Oscar just shattered all our preconceptions of what precursors actually mean. And I think that's a very important stat, or lack thereof, to remember going forward in these upcoming award races. Literally anything can happen, and I think that was a bit of a case, though I'm not really surprised about a lot of these choices. I think the song from Killers of the Flower Moon definitely makes an impact. They probably wanted to give some support, to an indigenous type of song, and I respect that. And yeah, I think this is a good category overall. But I really think that Billy and Phineas are going to get their second win for Best Original Song, and I think it's more than deserved. And the nominees for Best Original Score are Laura Cartman for American Fiction, John Williams for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, a posthumous nomination for legendary Robbie Robertson for Killers of the Flower Moon, Ludwig Göransson for Oppenheimer, and Jerskin Fendrix for Poor Things. This was a big shock, especially, well, maybe we shouldn't be shocked John Williams got in. But even so, I mean, Mika Levi for The Zone of Interest, I know it's only like 15 minutes of music, but the way they implement the music in that film to just overwhelm your senses and absolutely horrify you, it's some of the most innovative music I've ever heard in any motion picture. So I really was a little disappointed that it didn't get in. Maybe that goes along with sound, and that was just their way of honoring it. But I think that this was a category Zone of Interest should have absolutely been in. Not the worst loss in the world. I understand why perhaps it wasn't nominated. But, I know especially the Oscar expert is going to be upset about Dial of Destiny getting in. But look, I think it was more deserving than Spider-Verse, and I love Across the Spider-Verse way more than I love Dial of Destiny. I think it's one of the greatest comic book films of all time. But my thing with it, I watch that movie, I don't really think about Daniel Pemberton's score. As good as it actually is, I don't think it's like an Oscar-worthy type of thing, especially when I listen to it just watching the film. I really think there's so much else going for that movie, even though it only got one nomination, which is surprising, and we'll talk about that, obviously. But look, I mean, you look at what Ludwig Göransson did on Oppenheimer, and even though I would personally pick Jerskin Fendrix for Poor Things, which is one of the most innovative scores, one of the most left-field, off-kilter things I've heard in a long time. A lot of people would argue that Göransson's score for Oppenheimer has exceeded to an iconic level. I mean, Can You Hear the Music alone is just such an iconic piece of film music in general at this point in time. And just, yet again, I have to mention it, but the track Trinity, during the whole Trinity sequence, is some of the most heart-pounding, propulsive music I've heard in any film, in the way it heightens the tension in that scene to, unbeknownst Paramount levels. I think it is a deserving win for Best Original Score. And yet again, really happy, even though it wasn't my favorite score of the year, really happy to see the legendary Robbie Robertson get one Oscar nomination in his career. I mean, he is one of the most legendary musicians in rock music, and I think that the fact that he was able to finally make a dent in the Oscar race is something I'm very happy about. Not that he cares, obviously, but I think it's really great that they honored one of the great musicians of the last century and forward. Really happy to see Robbie get in there. But yet again, I think this is Ludwig Göransson's award to lose, and I think another one that Oppenheimer does absolutely deserve. But I really was surprised by the American Fiction nomination. I just saw that film, of course, the other day and reviewed it here. But I really didn't think about it getting nominated, even though I did think, I'm like, wow, this is a really cool score. So I certainly don't think this is an undeserving nomination, but it did surprise me and throw me for a loop a little bit. Now this year I actually do want to talk about Best Documentary Feature, because I have seen a lot of these and I have a lot to say, okay? So the nominees for Best Documentary Features are Bobby Wine, The People's President, The Eternal Memory, Four Daughters, To Kill a Tiger, in 20 Days in Mariupol. I wonder what's missing here. Beyond Utopia? Oh my goodness, this is the worst snub of the entire day. This is a fucking bullshit. I cannot believe, for the life of me, that they snubbed literally the best documentary of the year. Absolutely insane, especially considering how dense and topical the subject matter of the film is. I mean, this is talking about the North Korean regime and the defectors therein. This is one of the most riveting documentaries I've ever watched, and you're not going to put it in documentary feature? Come on, really? What is wrong with you guys? I mean, with all due respect, this is absolutely ludicrous to me. Not to say that the nominees here are undeserving, but I think the fact that every single one of them got in over Beyond Utopia, besides maybe one that I totally think is going to win and probably deserves to win, I think is absolutely ridiculous. I still have to see the Bobby Wine one. Very excited to check that out. To Kill a Tiger, who knows if I'm going to get a chance to watch it, but no one has literally seen that movie, except the documentary branch of the Academy, I guess. So I was really surprised to see that show up. No one was talking about it. Where's Going to Mars, the Nikki Giovanni project? Everyone was saying that had the right nominations and the right precursors to finally get in. But I guess, yet again, another precedent has been shattered this morning, and I really think, though, this is 20 Days in Mariupol's award to lose. I said this when I reviewed it a few months ago, and I really think that this is one of the most important, vital, and harrowing films of the entire year, especially considering it is about the Ukraine war. I don't appreciate people talking about killing children being propaganda. I'm just going to say that right off the bat, because it's not. But regardless, I think it's one of the most miraculous films to be completed, considering the circumstances in which it was shot and what this film has to show, the atrocities taking place in this world, and not even in a third world country. I think that this is a way to honor Ukraine, even though they don't want to invite Zelensky to speak. I don't know, they're a bit hypocritical, but regardless, I think that this is a film that everyone is probably going to vote for and will get the win deservedly so. And also, I am not surprised by the inclusion of Eternal Memory in this category either, because I actually had that in my predictions, considering they nominated the same director for The Mole Agent, which was one of my favorite films from 2020 when I did my original list. It's a very good film, and I think it's certainly deserving to be amongst the nominees. I understand why it's there. And for Best Animated Feature, we have The Boy and the Heron, Elemental, Nimona, Robot Dreams, and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Yet again, a category I do not understand for the life of me. Where is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem? I literally did not think that they would snub this movie. But I am glad to see that Robot Dreams got in. I was saying this on the Talking TV podcast episode for the Oscar nominations predictions the other night, that this could get the nomination and it would be more than deserved. I think it is better than Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But how does Elemental get in? I get it's Pixar, but it wasn't like they nominated Finding Dory. And I love Finding Dory. I think it's a great film. They didn't nominate The Good Dinosaur, and I understand why. It's not The Great Dinosaur. And at the same time, I think Elemental is easily their most middling effort, besides Cars 2. So I really don't understand how this could get in. I hate the fact that Disney has to have some obligatory spot to be nominated. You know what I mean? And I think this is an unwarranted nomination. I also, personally, and I understand I'm in the minority on this, I don't think Nimona should have been nominated. Yet again, it's one of those things where I think there are moments of the character development and the writing that is truly phenomenal. But it literally has some of the worst humor possible I've ever seen in any movie. I was cringing my ass off through almost that entire movie. And I don't think it is a deserving film from that aspect, because the screenplay is so shoddy and so horribly cringy. I think, though, it is quite an achievement from an animation standpoint, so I understand why it got in, but why is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles not here? Absolutely ridiculous. I also think, and this is another one where I'm in the minority on, so I understand why it wasn't nominated. But They Shot the Piano Player. It was one of my favorite animated films of last year, and I really would have loved to have seen that, but I'm not surprised it didn't make it. More deserving than a couple of these movies, though. But yet again, I mean, is it anyone's surprise that it's going to be, well, I don't think it's going to be Boy and the Heron, but I think it's that and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse that are really the two that are at the top. And I think Across the Spider-Verse is going to take this in a cakewalk, really. I mean, this is one of the best animated films ever made. It's probably top 3 comic book movies of all time for me. Watching it again, it is a work of art. Every single frame of this movie is so passionately and delicately thought out, and yet again, it's brimming with energy. It's filled to the brim with creativity. This is an easy runaway winner. Maybe the best we've seen in quite some time. Easily is going to go to Spider-Verse, and I don't think anything is going to sway me on that. And for Best International Feature, the nominees are Io Capitano from Italy, Perfect Days from Japan, Society of the Snow from Spain, The Teacher's Lounge from Germany, and The Zone of Interest from the United Kingdom. This category was quite the shock, because a lot of people thought Kiarostami's Fallen Leaves would get in, and I didn't review that film. I thought it was alright. I was like, what is the point of this? And I suppose the Academy felt the same way, because it didn't get a nomination. And I was saying that might miss, and I was right. Though I was surprised that Perfect Days actually got in, a film that I quite liked, but I really didn't think was deserving of a nomination or a submission over Godzilla -1 or Monster. Regardless, Japan had such an amazing year in 2023. I suppose I'll accept the nomination on the fact that it's a win for Japan, and they had the best year for cinema out of anybody last year. And Io Capitano is a film I've actually seen. This is like one of the few times where I've seen almost all the nominees in this category. Crazy, right? I think maybe going to film festivals has something to do with it, because I wouldn't have seen Zone of Interest yet if it weren't for that fact. And I think that Io Capitano is a very good film, but I was quite surprised it got the nomination. But then again, not really. Matteo Garrone is, garnered some traction throughout the years, and this seemed like the film that they could have honored him for. Obviously, The Missing should have made the shortlist. This should have been nominated for the Oscar, but regardless, I digress. I think Io Capitano is one of the stronger entries in here, but of course the standouts to me, Society of the Snow, absolutely phenomenal film. I think easily the number 2 in this category, but I mean, Zone of Interest. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for Best Director. Need I say any more? It's winning the Oscar. That's it. Done deal. This has always been this. This is one precedent that I don't think will ever be broken. And when it is broken, I will eat my words. But I really do think that this is Zone of Interest's war to lose. And I think it's interesting the fact that this is an English film essentially getting this award, even though it's, you know, in German. But Jonathan Glazer, of course, behind the camera, got to give it to Britain this time around, and England and all that. And I think it obviously is the most deserving nominee, if not one of the most deserving movies to be nominated this entire ceremony. And for the nominees for Best Original Screenplay, we have Anatomy of a Fall, screenplay by Justin Triet and Arthur Harari. The Holdovers, written by David Hemmingson. Maestro, written by Bradley Cooper and Josh Singer. May December, screenplay by Sammy Birch, story by Sammy Birch and Alex Menachek. And Past Lives, written by Celine Song. Yeah, no surprises here. May December's lone Oscar nomination, which comes as no surprise that it was in Screenplay. We'll get into that in a little bit. But yet again, I think the overwhelming support we have seen from Anatomy of a Fall, I think that this is Justin Triet and Arthur Harari's award to lose. I really feel that this is a top 5 movie. It might be the best screenplay of the entire year, at least in regards to construction and execution. It's an amazing, amazing film. I just watched it again for the 3rd time, and it is absolutely one of the best films of the year, which we will be talking about later. And I think more than deserving of a win in this category. Really no surprises. And I do think that this could be Anatomy of a Fall's award to lose, though don't count out David Hemmingson just yet for The Holdovers. I don't know, but to me it looks like Anatomy of a Fall is the odds-on favorite. And the nominees for Best Adapted Screenplay are American Fiction, written by Cord Jefferson. Barbie, written by Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. Oppenheimer, written by Christopher Nolan. Poor Things, screenplay by Tony McNamara. And The Zone of Interest, written by Jonathan Glazer. Whoa, this is a category of doozy. I literally did not expect The Zone of Interest to leapfrog Killers of the Flower Moon. Of all things, I thought that was a for sure locked up category when it comes to screenplay. But then Barbie entered, and I don't know if things really changed. Now, do I think Barbie deserves a screenplay nomination more than Killers of the Flower Moon? No! I don't even know how anyone can think that with all the inconsistencies in that script. And I don't even know if I'd be willing to say Zone of Interest deserves a screenplay nomination over Killers of the Flower Moon, even though I think Zone of Interest is an infinitely better movie. I don't know. I mean, I'm happy to see it, but it really was a bit of a shock. And this is a category to me where I feel very up in the air on. I think if we let our biases get a hold of us, I think Barbie could win, and I don't think it would be a very deserved win at all. I think that screenplay is going to age horribly. Well, not horribly, that's a bit harsh, but in the sense that the rules of the world make no sense. There's a lot of things that are just really laid bare and plainly put in the most obvious terms. And I don't think it really leaves much room for thought, except in a few moments here or there. It got some great ideas. I'm not going to say it isn't smart, because it does have a lot of great observations, and it is a very clever film in regards to a lot of the humor and the camp. I don't think that should equate to an Academy Award win, and I could be wrong about this. It could win, and it won't make any sense to me, but I think I'm also going to say that Oppenheimer and Poor Things could easily win. I think the work that Christopher Nolan put into that screenplay, like, I don't even know how you can compare that to Barbie. Christopher Nolan went out of his way to find out that one of the, main commanders in this went on a honeymoon with his wife to Kyoto. He didn't have to put that in the movie, but it's such a memorable moment when he says it, and I think it goes to show how painstakingly Christopher Nolan researches his films and his writing. And yet again, the structure is so unbelievably tight, it would be more than deserving a win. My only thing is the female characters aren't really that well realized at all, and that's maybe Nolan's biggest flaw as a filmmaker and a writer. So I think in a lot of ways Poor Things could end up winning this, and I'd be more than happy for Tony McNamara for winning such an incredible screenplay, an incredible journey of self-discovery for Bella Baxter in this movie. I think it is one of the most fully realized films. I think the dialogue has such a specificity to it that is so distinct to the story itself, and really chronicles Bella's growth in such a wonderfully beautiful and authentic way. And yet again, the world that he creates and brings to life through Aleister Gray's novel, I really think it's an unbelievable feat in writing. And I honestly think I might predict Poor Things to win this award. And, you know, only time will tell, obviously, but I don't know. I don't know if this is wishful thinking or not, but I am going to say Poor Things is very deserving, and my choice to what I predict will win Best Adapted Screenplay. And now we get on to the acting categories, which is always the most exciting thing to talk about. And for the nominees for Best Supporting Actor, we have Sterling K. Brown for American Fiction, Robert De Niro for Killers of the Flower Moon, Robert Downey Jr. for Oppenheimer, Ryan Gosling for Barbie, and Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things. This category was so hard to predict, and I don't think a lot of people got it right, because yet again, when the SAGs came out, when the BAFTAs came out, you saw Mark Ruffalo missed. Did you really think that he wasn't going to get nominated? That was the question. But I always knew, I'm like, if there's one person from Poor Things that will and absolutely should get nominated, it is Mark Ruffalo. He would be my choice to win in this category. This is a revelatory comedic performance, and a revelatory performance from Mark Ruffalo in general. Maybe even his best. You could make the argument for playing Duncan Wedderburn. It's really, truly a tremendous feat in acting. Every second he's on screen made me laugh my ass off. But I am really not sure how I feel about Sterling K. Brown getting nominated. Great actor for sure. I thought he was really good in American Fiction. But over so many people that missed out, I really don't see why this performance was nominated. Especially over Charles Melton in May December. I mean, come on. I feel so bad for Charles Melton. I was really pulling for him. I was hoping he'd get that fifth slot, but unfortunately he lost out to someone who I think is less deserving of a nomination, we'll say. I don't want to say anything about Sterling K. Brown. Love the guy, you know, but yet again, I don't think that this is a performance that should quite reach, you know, into these ranks. I could say the same thing about Ryan Gosling in Barbie, though, and he's been nominated for literally everything. So, you know, that's just how it is. And, you know, my personal opinion, of course. But I would have loved to see Dominic Sessa get in for The Holdovers. Always a bit of a long shot, of course. And, of course, Milo Machado-Grenade for Anatomy of a Fall, which, you know, someone who should have been in the conversation right from the beginning. But since he's young, they didn't want to throw him a bone, unfortunately. That would probably be my favorite supporting male performance of the year. And Coleman Domingo in The Color Purple would have been amazing, though he got nominated for something else, and we'll talk about it in a bit. But yet again, not my favorite performance in this category, or even of the year, but I think this is Robert Downey Jr.'s award to lose. It's his time, you know, for everything that he's done throughout his career. Might not even be better than he is in Tropic Thunder, but at the same time, this really is a subtler side to Downey that we have not seen in such a long time. And his turn as Lewis Strauss, I mean, it's undeniably great. This is not a performance I would pick, but certainly one I won't be upset by. I think he has, you know, paid his dues, especially as he has such an amazing success story. You know, a rise and fall narrative that he rose right back to the top again, and really happy to see the guy win. I absolutely love Robert Downey Jr. How can no one not love him? So yeah, really happy to see him take this award. Though Mark Ruffalo, for me, man, I mean, I'm just glad he got nominated at the very least. More than deserving. And yeah, this is definitely, though, Robert Downey Jr.'s award to lose. And then we get to the Best Supporting Actress award, and the nominees are Emily Blunt for Oppenheimer, Danielle Brooks for The Color Purple, America Ferrera for Barbie, Jodie Foster for Nyad, and Divine Joy Randolph for The Holdovers. Look, yet again, this category might have the worst, most egregious nomination. Why was American Ferrera nominated? For Barbie? Like, look, she seems awesome. I love her, you know. She's very good in the movie. But just because you give a heavy-handed monologue, and keep in mind, I love the ideas of what she's talking about. I do think that was a very interesting point that Barbie brought up about the devaluation of mothers and how they aren't seen. But it's delivered in the most generic way. Greta Gerwig said she literally pulled the scene out of her ass. Why does this warrant an Academy Award nomination? I really don't understand this at all. Leaves me scratching my head. I just don't understand how you can look at that and say, oh, this is better than Julianne Moore in May, December. Right. It's just absolutely ridiculous to me. You could have nominated Penelope Cruz too. This makes no sense at all, this nomination. And yet again, I mean, it's nice to hear America Ferrera, Academy Award nominee. You know, really glad she's gotten all the success she has off this movie. But no, I don't think that there was a worthy nomination in this category. Could have nominated so many other actors, but yet again, I don't think she's going to win. She's easily at the bottom of the pack for this race. And really glad to see Danielle Brooks getting the only nomination for The Color Purple, which is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I think that this is one of the best performances of any of the Color Purple movies. Probably my favorite supporting performance of the entire year, straight up. So I don't think she'll win, obviously. Of course, I think we all know who that is, but I do want to say it's great to see Emily Blunt get her first Oscar nomination. I thought she should have been nominated for Mary Poppins Returns from 2018, but she didn't snag the nomination. And yet again, not a performance I picked. She is great in it, even though I feel like her character is underwritten in many, many regards. Jodie Foster, great to see her get nominated again after almost 30 years of not being in Oscar contention. Really, really happy to see her pull through. Gotta love Jodie Foster, one of the greats, you know, two-time Academy Award winner for The Accused and Silence of the Lambs. Not going to repeat that same success here, but really glad to see her get in for an amazing supporting turn in Nyad. But I think we all know that this is Divine Joy Randolph's award in a cakewalk. Yet again, I would still pick Danielle Brooks, but Divine Joy Randolph is more than deserving of a win for one of my favorite movies of last year, being The Holdovers. The subtlety she brings to Mary and the emotion and what her character means to the story, especially to the two guys in the narrative. It is the definition of a supporting turn, and really happy to see her take the Oscar come the night of, and yeah, definitely Divine Joy Randolph's award. And now we get to Best Actor in a Leading Role, and the nominees are Bradley Cooper in Maestro, Coleman Domingo in Rustin, Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, Cillian Murphy in Oppenheimer, and Jeffrey Wright in American Fiction. As I said, I'm just so glad that Coleman Domingo got an Oscar nomination for Rustin, my favorite lead male performance of the year, and who I personally would pick to win in this category. As soon as I saw it at TIFF, I'm like, this guy needs to get the Oscar nomination at the very least, if not win. But I think the nomination is a victory within itself. Just such a tremendous character actor who we've seen blow up over the past few years. It's so great that he's finally getting his flowers at the Oscars, and absolutely love the guy. He seems like one of the most terrific human beings out there. DiCaprio not getting the nomination, which is kind of surprising, but not really. I think he's really fallen off in this race. He hasn't campaigned a lot. He's really been championing for Lily Gladstone, even though I would have liked to see him get in over Jeffrey Wright. Yet again, it's great to see Jeffrey Wright, Academy Award nominee. What a great actor. What a great performance. Definitely the best part about American Fiction, in my opinion, and I think most people would agree with that statement. But yet again, I really think this is between Cillian Murphy and Paul Giamatti, two veteran actors who, you know, Cillian Murphy, this is his first nomination. Paul Giamatti, only his second. His first for lead after missing out on his incredible turn in Alexander Payne's Sideways about 20 years ago. And of course, he should have been nominated for American Splendor, an amazing Paul Giamatti performance, probably my favorite of his, but this is probably second for me. And I would be beyond delighted if Paul Giamatti ended up taking the win for this category. I think his performance in The Holdovers is absolutely amazing. And yet again, I think probably the second best performance I've seen him in. Really, it's sad to see Bradley Cooper won't win again. One of the most nominated individuals without a single win. I think at some point he could pass Glenn Close and Peter O'Toole, which would be kind of insane. But, you know, still a very successful morning for Bradley Cooper, 3 nominations. And, yeah, I really think that this category, it's going to be tough to call, but you know what? I'm going to predict Paul Giamatti for this award. I'd love to see him win, especially after, you know, all the goodwill he's received, you know, especially after he went viral for eating at In-N-Out after he won his Golden Globe. He just seems like such an incredible guy, you know, very generous soul and a very down-to-earth person. Yeah, it's going to be great to see him maybe get his first Oscar win, but yet again, Cillian Murphy's incredibly intense and subtle performance in Oppenheimer would also be very deserving of the award. And yeah, I still think though for now, we have to wait to see SAG, but I have a feeling that they might go Paul Giamatti, so I'm going to say Paul Giamatti might get the Oscar this time around for Best Actor, and I'd be more than delighted to see that happen. And now, for Best Actress in a Leading Role, the nominees are Annette Bening in Nyad, Lily Gladstone in Killers of the Flower Moon, Sandra Hüller in Anatomy of a Fall, Carey Mulligan in Maestro, and Emma Stone for Poor Things. This was maybe the biggest surprise of the entire morning. No Margot Robbie after getting literally every single precursor. But I'm kind of okay with the fact that she did not get in, because there were so many more performances that were more deserving, if you ask me, than her turn as Barbie. It's an incredibly committed physical performance. I think the transformation's great. Gotta love Margot in the movie. I think she's better than her 2 co-stars that got nominated. But I don't look at that and think, oh, this has to be nominated for an Oscar. I look at Fantasia Barrino and think that she deserves a nomination. And as great as Annette Bening is, I think it is an absolute crime that they blanked on Fantasia here. The Color Purple should have at least gotten 2 nominations. And I really think Fantasia could have been that second spot. And I think she's more deserving than anyone else who is outside of the race, as well as Margot Robbie and Annette Bening. I think she should have been the undisputable 5, in my opinion. But yet again, this is one of the deepest years for Best Actress. I think this category would have been perfect had she gotten in. But even so, between the other 4 nominees here, Annette Bening, who is great, I mean, let me make that very clear. You know, this is anyone's game that I'd be happy if they won, but I really think this is Emma Stone's award to lose. She's going to get her second Oscar for this. She's been picking up literally every single award. Not to say, as I said, that precursors necessarily matter, but I do think that this performance is not only deserving, but it is the best of the year and the best of her entire career. So as much as it would be great to see Lily Gladstone win a historic nomination for an indigenous woman getting nominated, a Native American indigenous woman getting nominated for the very first time. Really, really glad to see that happen. One of the best performances of the year. You can say the same thing about Sandra Hüller. Really glad she finally got that international breakout that she deserved. And Carey Mulligan, incredibly committed performance as Felicia Montalegre in Maestro, the beating heart and soul of that film. But I don't think I see anyone winning over Emma Stone. She's just that good in Poor Things, and I think more than deserving to win this award, and will, quite frankly, take it away. And now we move on to Best Director, one of the most contentious categories, I think, of the entire morning. And the nominees are Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, Martin Scorsese for Killers of the Flower Moon, Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer, Yorgos Lanthimos for Poor Things, and of course, Jonathan Glazer for The Zone of Interest. I honestly could not be any happier with this lineup. This is kind of amazing and kind of mind-blowing at the same time. I know everyone's going to cry snub for Gerwig, but I don't look at that movie and think, oh, this is one of the best directed movies of the year. I appreciate the visions that she brought to it. No one else could have done it, and the fact that she got over $1 billion at the box office, I think that's her win. Yet again, I knew the Academy wasn't going to go for her, and I'm completely okay with it. But no one can complain about a woman missing out because we got Justine Triet for Anatomy of a Fall, one of the biggest surprise nominations of the entire morning, but one of the most delightful. I think if there was any female filmmaker that deserved to get in, it would absolutely have to be Justine Triet, and I am beyond the moon excited for her. This is the first female French director nominated for Best Director at the Academy Awards, and just seeing them react to some of the nominations today was really, really heartwarming, and really so happy for all of them. And of course, this is a big deal because, of course, Jonathan Glazer got in for The Zone of Interest, which, if you ask me, I think is by far the best directed movie of the year. So even though it didn't get cinematography or editing, at least they had the, sense enough to nominate him for Best Director. But yet again, a precedent is being broken, as Claude Rains says so famously as Louis Renaud in Casablanca. And that, of course, is Alexander Payne. No nomination in sight for him. And this is crazy because he's been nominated for Sideways, Descendants, Nebraska. Every time he's made a movie since Sideways, besides Downsizing, along with the Best Picture nomination came a Best Director nomination, and there isn't one for him this year. I'm not saying that it's a complete snub, but it's certainly a big surprise. And this is what I'm saying, we have to throw stats out the window. It does not matter anymore, because literally anybody can get in. And sure, there are some things that are important, of course, but yet again, nothing is 100% to a T, and I think this category proves that 100%. Honestly, it might not have been the exact 5 I picked, but this is a perfect lineup for Best Director, and I think it's obvious that Christopher Nolan is finally taking home a Best Director Oscar for his entire body of work. But yet again, it's Oppenheimer. I think it's his best directed film, and one of the absolute best directed films of the entire year, so I think it is absolutely warranted. And yeah, cannot wait to see Christopher Nolan get up on that podium and accept his award. And now, everybody, we get to the 10 best movies of the year, so-called, by the Academy of Motion Pictures, the Academy Award for Best Picture. And the nominees are American Fiction, Anatomy of a Fall, Barbie, The Holdovers, Killers of the Flower Moon, Maestro, Oppenheimer, Past Lives, Poor Things, and The Zone of Interest. Yet again, no surprises here, but this is really a history-making category. This is the first time we have 3 movies directed by female directors. Of course, Barbie, Anatomy of a Fall, and Past Lives. Past Lives only getting 2 measly nominations, just like Women Talking last year, though I don't think it will result in a win for any of those categories like For Women Talking and Adapted Screenplay, but I still think this is a huge step forward yet again, and especially with director. No one can complain about a woman not getting in, because we have Justine Triet, and this is just so huge. I'm so happy. Like, this movie really is a top 5 contender. I think a lot of people underestimated how well Anatomy of a Fall was going to perform, as well as The Zone of Interest. I definitely thought it was going to get, well, maybe I thought it was going to get more nominations, but certainly not the big ones that it got, at least in totality, but it's definitely more than deserving of Best Picture nominee. 2 films not in the English language, or at least from other countries, that made the list, because you can also throw Past Lives in there as well. Which is also in English, but also Anatomy of a Fall in English. I don't know what I'm saying. But the point is, the international voting body has definitely expanded, and I think it is paying off in big ways in which we have not seen before. And I think this is such a diverse lineup for Best Picture, and I think overall very well rounded. There isn't a single movie this year that I do not like. Compared to last year's batch of nominees, which I found to be a bit lackluster, especially with the inclusion of Elvis in the Triangle of Sadness. But here, I really can't complain about too much. Sure, I may not love Barbie, but, you know, it's a big success within itself. It's a fun movie, and, you know, it's a big celebration that it got in all these categories, you know, for fans of the film and whatnot, and certainly for Greta Gerwig. Look, I mean, this category I think is pretty wrapped up, though. I think Oppenheimer's winning Best Picture, and there's no way around it. As I said, 13 nominations, and yeah, it's been the runaway frontrunner for this entire award season. It's, you know, besides Barbie, the biggest movie of the year, you know, the Barbenheimer effect, but I think as a film, it certainly far exceeds Barbie in many ways, especially from filmmaking. It's an epic, timely story about a historical figure. It seems like, you know, the generic Oscar bait story that would win and what the Academy will go for, but it's so much more than that. It's a great political thriller. It has all the elements of being an absolute classic, and I really do think that it is an absolute classic. Maybe not the film I would pick for my #1 spot to win Best Picture, but certainly more than deserving of a win. I think it's just been such an incredible year for movies that this whole Oscar race, besides those few things I mentioned, I think is pretty amazing. And I can't wait to see the Oscars come that day, and you know I'm going to be on here talking about it soon after, like I am with the nominations here. But yeah, guys, you let me know in the comments what you thought of the nominations this year. Was there anything that you thought was missing in Best Picture or otherwise? Let me know down in the comments below, and smash the like button. Subscribe to the channel if you're coming in here for the first time. We're definitely going to be talking about this stuff very soon. As I said, you know, the award season, it's a year-long process, and we will be talking about it all the way until after it concludes this Oscar season. And of course, I'm really happy to have you all come on here and talk movies with me. There's going to be some more content this week. I actually have a big announcement to make for an upcoming series that might be happening on the channel, maybe even another collaboration. Ooh. And you guys are going to be the first to know about that. And I also plan on making my video for my top 5 albums of 2023. A little behind the curve on that, but that's okay. We need to normalize that being just fine. And I will try to get that out to you by the end of this week. And until then, you guys have a great day, and I hope you enjoyed the Oscar nominations. Take it easy now. What? Huh? El Conde? What misses? Don't tell me Zone of Interest misses. Zone of Interest, please. Come on, how do you... No! Come on, man. How the fuck do you miss Zone of Interest?